Informal assessments by Megan Roy. Informal assessments are not data-driven. Instead, they are content and performance-driven. They are used to inform instruction. They are used for during learning, not after learning, and they inform the educator about student learning needs. Anticipation guides. Anticipation guides in the classroom can be used before, during, or after the unit. They preview key vocabulary and they assess what the student knows prior to the lesson being taught. Assistive technology or educational technology that can be used with anticipation guides include electronic worksheets, graphic organizers, an audio player or an audio recorder for questions and answers, and a timer for students who struggle with pacing. The advantages of these include it assesses prior knowledge and it assesses how a student changed their thinking from the beginning to the end of teaching. A disadvantage would be just guessing. Many of my students tend to guess on these instead of putting in the effort to really try to answer them. It can also, because they're just guessing, they have a 50% chance of getting it correct. So it can also not totally assess the prior knowledge. It could just be a guess. The second informal assessment example is a work sample. Work samples can be in written materials, classwork, homework, notes, which would be a use of graphic organizer, or it can also be a lab report. Assistive technology that can be used with this would be an electronic work sample, which can easily be shared with colleagues and therapists. A Go formative can also be used with entrance slips or exit slips. And then any gaming online, you can pull data from Quizzes, Kahoot, or Quizlet, and then they can be shared. The advantages, it's easily documented due to the physical paper or electronic copy. The disadvantage would be that sometimes the classwork or the homework doesn't ever get completed. In 8th grade, we have that issue. Informal assessments number 3. Example is event sampling, which just focuses on a certain behavior and a certain event. In the classroom, you can use this by observing or monitoring student for specific behavior for before, during, or after. Assistive technology that can help or can be used with this would be tracking data through Google Sheets, which is able to be shared with parents and guardians, teachers, therapists, mobility aids, and then also timers for students who struggle with pacing, and then a videotape of what normal social skills would look like for the student to learn from. Advantages of these is that you hope it would correct the concerned behavior or correct the concerned area, and they are single observations. Disadvantages, it does take time and effort into the observations. The assessment must have before, during, and after data, and then the other or outside variables that can affect the daily behaviors might include something that happened in the home before the student got to school that can affect the rest of their day. The last informal assessment is Four Corners. Four Corners can be used with bell ringers or warm-ups, exit slips, or like a last 5-minute activity. And then also I've used them as brain breaks and almost like a comprehension check, a quick comprehension check. I've used them with Go Formative, where I post a question and they have to go to the answer in wherever they answered around the room. I've used it with a document camera, showing the question up on the board. And then if you need a reading assistant, you can have text-to-speech and then also font variations, make it larger or change the color. The advantages, it gets the students up and moving around the room, and it does give you a quick survey to see like who knows what right away. The disadvantages is that a lot of students like to follow their friends or follow the crowd, which doesn't give you a fully accurate reading on what they know. In conclusion, informal assessments are ways to assess students' strengths and weaknesses, and for educators to actually plan for future instruction. They should also help in how students should be grouped for future instruction. If you as a teacher, if your pacing is correct with the lesson and if your students are getting it, and then also it should allow you to know what students need the individualized support.